Munro Trail. It's one of the most rewarding hikes, scenic drives, historical locations, and one of the best examples of the success of carefully planned conservation in the Hawaiian Islands. And that's a lot to say for one 7-mile-long, one-lane dirt road. But through the heart of the forest and over the highest peak on Lanai, Munro Trail never disappoints.
The Munro Trail itself is actually part of an ancient trail system that crossed portions of the mountain. In 1911, a New Zealand rancher was hired by the Lanai Company to come and manage Lanai Ranch. His name was George Munro. George Munro was an amazing guy. He learned to speak the Hawaiian language. He was an incredible naturalist. It's because of him that many of the endemic Hawaiian species still remain on Lanai. He caused the cowboys to go out and plant the Cook Island pines because he realized that they would draw water out of the clouds, creating drip, actually another 35 inches of drip a year added to the average rainfall. In 1955, a jeep trail was surveyed following the old cowboy horse trail, and so they dedicated the Munro Trail to George Munro. The geology of Munro Trail is really tied to the creation of Lanai. The main mountain of the island, Lanai Hale, makes up the island mass rising over 3,300 feet. And as you drive along Munro Trail in areas following the ancient foot trail, you pass through sections where valleys have wind that is driven up from the channel between Maui and Molokai. And so there's sort of an erosion that occurs, a sandblasting in some instances where intersections of lava flows remain and the outer edges are blown away. You drive through these landscapes and go from sort of almost rock desert to rather verdant landscape. And it's really an incredible place. Some of the points of interest along Munro Trail start right at the very beginning, where you start to see the small valleys, Naio, Koloiki, that form the larger Mauna Lei Valley, or Gulch as it's sometimes called. Some of the most impressive areas are sections like in the edge of Naio Gulch, where you see this amazing geology, and then you get up to an overview into Mauna Lei Gulch, or valley, where you're looking down this incredible valley, which was once the only watered valley in all of Lanai. It was a place where, in fact, in the 1850s, accounts of visitors at the time described the lo'ikalo, the native taro pond fields, as producing some of the sweetest taro found anywhere in the islands. You then come to this section where the cliffs just drop down, and you see a narrow ridge extending into the middle of Mauna Lei. That ridge is called Ho'okio. And it's a place of traditional significance in that it was a fortified ridge. Some of the notches along the edge of the ridge were places where the Lanai native people, during the conquest battles of Kalaniʻōpuʻu and Kamehameha I, took their last stance in an effort to repel the invading forces. So that's Ho'okio, an amazing geological and storied place on the landscape. And then as you continue up the drive, we start to go from plants that are a mix of more introduced species to an incredible mix of more than 45 or 50 endemic Hawaiian species, some of them found only on Lanai. That native plants continue to thrive on Lanai is amazing, because in 1900 there were close to 100,000 feral sheep and goats on the island. Today we have amazing endemic species like ho'ava, ohia, maile, ohemakai, the uluhe lau nui, these ferns or canopy plants that just cool and give life to Lanai. The amazing thing about this forest system is that, one, it catches approximately 45 inches of rain a year. So we're not a real strong rainforest. But when they started planting things like the Cook Island pines, manuka, the New Zealand tea, in 1911 period like that, to try and draw a little more rain to the island, the Cook Island pines themselves add another almost 35 inches total of rainfall or water base to this watershed that gives life to all of the island of Lanai.
The highest point of the island is Lanai Hale, which stands at 3,368 feet. Its name literally translates to the House of Lanai.
Now there's one other peak of importance on Lanai, just a little bit lower. Its name is Ha'alele Pa'akai. Ha'alele Pa'akai means salt discarded, and it's from an account of some fishermen that came bearing with them their fishing gear and bundles of salt so that they could dry the fish that they were going to catch here. They look down into the basin of Palawai and they see beds of white all spread across the basin. We have no reason to carry our salt. Let's leave the salt behind. And they descend down into Palawai, and what they thought had been beds of salt had actually only been ohukea, white mist. So they asked some of the kama'aina, we saw salt, yeah, where is it? You guys made a mistake. No, it wasn't salt, but just mist. So there's an old Hawaiian saying, the mistake of the men who ascended the slopes of Lanai Hale was to discard their salt. Kupuna, the elders used that as a lesson, teaching you not to act in haste. But because of this event, the second summit of Lanai Hale is called Ha'alele Pa'akai, salt discarded.
The Munro Trail winds through lush forests and up mountains to the top of Lanai Hale, and then back down to the Palawai Basin. The road is dirt, somewhat rutty in spots, and often difficult to pass in muddy terrain. But the history and beauty make this a journey worth seeking out.